Listen Up with Jim Potts. Listen up, business owners, CFOs, human resource managers, and all managers and supervisors. Jim Potts is answering and addressing your questions and concerns, helping you stay out of court. Furthermore, please be advised that Jim's answers are not legal advice and are only intended as a guide based on his years of experience. The phone lines are open. 1-855-4-J-POTS. That's 1-855-457-6887. You can also email us at listenup@jameswilliampottsllc.com. Ready to listen up? Here is Jim Potts.
Jim Potts back on the air. Thank you, as always, for listening to me. Well, we're going to be talking about breastfeeding today. Now, don't get too excited about that. We're talking about there's an emergence of a breastfeeding discrimination legal action that somebody can take for breastfeeding. Now, look, I'm not talking about breastfeeding in public. That always seems like that's a big deal for people to see somebody breastfeeding in public. I never see the big deal about that, quite frankly. Everybody I've seen that's doing that is normally covered up. It's always done in a nice manner. I think I've seen some things on the internet where some people are not so cool about how they do it. But look, whatever the case may be, it's a natural order of business. I really don't understand people getting so upset about that. But now, as usual, some of this stuff is going into the work environment. This issue about breastfeeding, first of all, let's just clarify some politically correct terminology here, because it's out there on the internet as breastfeeding. You know, it's really lactation accommodation is the issue. Now, some states have lactation accommodation as a law, that when a person returns from a maternity leave and they come back into the work environment and now they need to express the milk from their breast, that they need time in order to do that. And there are laws in place in some of the states where, in fact, they have individuals that are requesting this. And the amount of time is a whole different issue in terms of how much time that they need it. Now, there's a case that came out that had to do with an employer denying lactation rights to employees. We need to separate out something here for a second. Discrimination based upon pregnancy is one thing. Discrimination based upon lactation accommodation is something entirely different. So let's break those down. Pregnancy discrimination is when a person is in fact pregnant. You can't take any adverse action against them when they come back. You've got to return them to the same position or a comparable position with comparable pay. I mean, that's just the standard language that's out there. When a person requests lactation accommodation, that arguably is not pregnancy related. Now, the reason why I say that is because the person is no longer pregnant. And that's what this case, EEOC versus Houston Funding, that's what basically what the issue was. Now, in that case, the employee alleged that she was fired because she asked to pump breast milk at work. Now, the federal judge in that particular case dismissed it as a sex discrimination case. Now, the court's analysis and reasoning behind it was that they stated the company fired, well, let's put it this way, let me back up. The EEOC, as usual, stated that the company fired her because she wanted to pump breast milk. Discrimination because of pregnancy, childbirth, or related condition is illegal, is what the EEOC's position was. Now, if the company's claim was that she was fired for job abandonment was meant to hide the real reason, is that she wanted to pump breast milk, lactation is not pregnancy, childbirth, or a related medical condition. That was the rationale that was being brought forth from the employer side of things. Now, the facts were is that she gave birth on December 11th. After that day, she was no longer pregnant. Her pregnancy-related condition had ended. Firing someone because of lactation accommodation or breast pumping is not sex discrimination, is going to be the argument. Now, let me go on record to say that women are the only gender that can naturally produce milk. So therefore, denying women the right to lactate might be sex discrimination because it really fits into a category of male versus female. Now, the decision in that case really kind of angered some people. And I'm sure that the people that are angered were probably women who are breastfeeders, or from a female standpoint, because this is a female issue and not a male issue. Now, before you start overreacting and sending me things, let me just clarify that we need lactation discrimination is going to be equal to some type of discrimination. It's just not going to be pregnancy related, in my opinion. So you can't bring in a pregnancy discrimination suit. Sex discrimination, possibly, because again, it only affects women. The other thing is, for those of you who in fact have a woman that's returning to the work environment after giving birth, and she needs that time, please understand that time, and most of the laws, as I understand them, in the states that have lactation accommodation, is that you have to give that person the time to be able to express the milk. They need to be in a private, quiet room. Can't just be in a bathroom in a toilet stall. So let's just make that clear. In addition to that, you have to give them enough time in order to be able to do it. Now, breaks and the time for breaks varies from state guidelines to federal guidelines. So I put this in the category, once again, of use common sense. Forget the state guideline for a second in the amount of time, or whether or not there's a federal guideline or not. If a person needs the time to do this, then give them the time to do it. It's not necessarily a situation that's going to last forever. Having had children, by my wife, then I'm sensitive to the needs of what somebody may need under these kind of circumstances. So let me just put that out there also. So I don't want people telling me I'm a hater, because I'm not a hater. But also, is what you have to understand is that you cannot make comments. I had an owner one time, that had a disgruntled employee. Well, she wasn't disgruntled at first. When she went out on maternity leave, she was the only salesperson that this employer had. She leaves to go out on maternity leave. And right before she leaves, she tells the owner of the company, look, I'm not due to deliver for another couple of months. So why don't I do this? Why don't I work sales from home, until the baby is born? And that way it helps you and it helps me financially. Owner thought it was a great idea. Okay. After she has the baby and she's ready to return back to work, and I shouldn't say she's ready to return back to work, when the employer was ready to have her return back to work, she contacts the owner of the company, says, you know what? Why don't I do this? This is working out okay. I could be at home with my baby. I could still do sales from home, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the facts were is that she actually had problems with sales even before she left. She wasn't doing as well as she should have been doing. And as usual, some of these employees have fallen into this no documentation situation, and that's what this one was as well. So the owner of the company told her, no, I need you actually back here, so that he wanted to be able to monitor her sales and get her sales up to a level that he was most comfortable with. She didn't like it. She didn't like that idea. So she became a disgruntled individual about this. And of course, she did return back to the work environment because she needed the job. And the expectation was that she would return. She returns back to the job. So the company provided her lactation accommodation. She's in this private room. And while she's in there, the owner walks in and sees her expressing the milk from her breast. Now, she was still covered, but when he walked in there, it was enough for him to see what she was doing. He walks in and looks at her and says, oh, I'm sorry. If I had known you were going to be doing that, I'd have bought cookies. Now, those kind of comments are never going to sit well. Now, the woman at that time laughed it off. 3 months later, though, she loses her job. And, of course, when she loses her job, what do you think she comes back and claims? That she was discriminated against because of that comment, and she actually brought the issue under sexual harassment. Because, again, that shows you how this issue of lactation accommodation can flow into different areas, or at least the arguments can be made. Now, the employer received a letter from an attorney, and you know what the eventual outcome was. They ended up settling it, all off of a dumb comment. Please, honor the people's rights if they have to do lactation accommodation. Understand it may not just take 10 minutes. California law, the employer has to afford the lactation accommodation. I'll just stick with California for a second. And give the person enough time, and it really cannot be included as part of their regular 10-minute break. They may need more than that, so just please be mindful of that. So this issue about breastfeeding discrimination, this is not something, again, that's going to go away. You may end up seeing something on this again. Don't get caught up behind this. If the woman needs the time, simply give her the time, and let's not worry about it and move on. And hopefully, which is another problem, is that there won't be abuse with this, because employees sometimes can get opportunities and then they end up abusing it. So for the employees out there that might be in that situation, please use some common sense. Okay, use the amount of time that you need. Be comfortable with the time that you need, but don't abuse it and end up getting caught up in a situation as well. All right. With that last comment, it's time to close out this segment. And let me remind you that you can also hear us on Facebook at Listen Up and subscribe to us on iTunes. Just search for Listen Up with Jim Potts. And as a reminder, we take calls every third Friday between 9:45 and 10:45. And you can reach us at 855-4J-POTS or 855-457-6887. Or you can email us at listenup@jameswilliampottsllc.com. In addition to that, I am also on Twitter now. So if you go on Twitter and find my name, I'm also on LinkedIn. So if you can find my name on there as well, James William Potts. I'm amassing quite a following now, so I would appreciate you jumping on there, because I'll be putting information out through those mediums as well, so through those social websites as well. All right? Okay, I'm Jim Potts, and I will continue to fight the fight. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Thank you for being a part of Listen Up with Jim Potts. We take your calls every third Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for your questions and concerns. Call us at 1-855-4J-POTS. That's 1-855-4J-POTS. Again, that's every third Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time at 1-855-4J-POTS. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on iTunes, and link up with us on LinkedIn. You can also email us at listenup@jameswilliampottsllc.com. Until next time, make it a great week.